Nikki Haley says nothing prepared her for the level of suffering she saw when she recently visited South Sudanese refugee camps.
Women are giving birth on dirt floors, floors that have now turned to mud by the fact that it's the rainy season. There is nothing that prepares you for the sobs of the South Sudanese women, nearly all of whom have been raped, sometimes repeatedly.
Haley spoke of one story in particular.
One woman told me about being gang raped. She told me about how the soldiers ripped her baby out of her arms and threw him in a fire.
She was the first senior member of the Trump administration to visit South Sudan last month. She said the United States at one point had high hopes for the country's leader, Salva Kiir, but there's now revulsion with what he's allowed to happen the past few years. She added there are limits to U.S. patience and generosity.
His government and his soldiers have caused the suffering of millions of South Sudanese people. To his credit, he didn't try and deny it. But acknowledgement of evil is not enough. We have to take a side.
She welcomed Kiir's order this week requiring free and unhindered access for humanitarian groups in South Sudan. Her remarks were followed by a panel discussion with journalists and activists, some who have recently returned from South Sudan.
We're blaming most of the atrocities right now on the government, which is what is happening in this latter part of the conflict. The rebels also committed really bad atrocities in the beginning, and just because these are the dynamics right now, don't mean that the rebels are really better.
One activist argued in favor of establishing an evidence collection mechanism.
Memories fade. In such a, in topography like South Sudan, evidence gets lost. It can be destroyed when people realize that one day they will be held to account. So it's very critical that today we collect that evidence, because at the end of the day, it's not, how the war was fought. It is the narrative that is told after the war is over.
For this freelance journalist who has also done work for VOA, the question that needs to be asked to Ambassador Haley and others should be,
okay, you've talked tough. What will you do? What will you do to actually end this war and actually bring accountability?
As part of this focus on the conflict and in collaboration with Photo Week DC, the journalist's work is being projected on the exterior walls of the Holocaust Museum in Washington. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.